After the LA dinner party and Martha Stewart fiasco, another issue has cropped up, and it threatens Prince Harry's reconciliation efforts further. As for what that is, it's Meghan Markle's birthday tiara, and it's even garnered a warning. According to one well-placed source, it's incredibly frustrating for Harry. These sorts of public dramas have the potential to set back everything he's been working towards. For Harry, his goal has been to smooth things over with his family, but these are the exact sorts of things that make them wary, they admitted too. At one point in the conversation, the source also stated, the root problem is that their goals are at odds. In order to please the royals, the best approach is to take a very low-key, very guarded approach to anything public-facing. But to promote her brand, Meghan is required to do the total opposite. Before signing off, they also said, the truth is, it's just not possible for her to fit into the royals' very narrow and stuffy view of what is acceptable. She doesn't want to have to censor herself and everything she does in hopes of pleasing them, especially because she's done so much already and gotten next to nothing back. It's very hard to imagine that she and Harry will ever see eye to eye on this. There's a pattern that keeps emerging from Sussex circles, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Every time Prince Harry appears to be making genuine progress towards some kind of reconciliation with the royal family, something shifts. Plans that seem to be quietly forming behind closed doors suddenly unravel, and sources close to the situation keep pointing in the same direction. Today, I want to walk you through exactly what's been happening, why palace insiders are describing the situation as incredibly frustrating, and what it tells us about where the Sussexes truly stand. To understand the full picture, we need to go back to the years immediately following Harry and Meghan's departure from royal life. When the couple stepped back in January 2020, there was a widespread assumption among royal observers that this was a temporary arrangement, a cooling-off period, something that would in time be quietly renegotiated. Harry himself had spent his entire life inside the institution. He understood its rhythms, its language, its unwritten rules. Many people, including some quite senior figures within the monarchy, believed that once the dust settled, a path back, even a partial one, could be found. And for a time there were signals, however faint, that Harry was at least open to that possibility. Reports emerged suggesting he had maintained some private contact with his father, King Charles, and with his brother, Prince William. There were whispered conversations about how his children, Archie and Lilibet, might one day play a role in royal life. Harry had shown, in certain interviews and statements, a genuine emotional pull toward the family and toward Britain. He spoke about missing home. He spoke about his children's heritage. And palace watchers noted that unlike Meghan, who seemed to have fully oriented her life and ambitions toward California and the American media landscape, Harry carried what one commentator described as an unresolved longing. It's against that backdrop that the frustration begins to make sense. Because according to accounts from people familiar with the internal dynamics, Harry has at various points signaled a willingness to engage, to attend certain events, to find terms on which some kind of visible, if limited, royal participation might be possible. But those signals, reports suggest, have repeatedly run into an obstacle that has nothing to do with the palace and everything to do with Meghan. Sources indicate that Meghan's influence over Harry's decision-making in these matters has been profound and, from the palace's perspective, decisive in the wrong direction. Whenever a potential opening has appeared, the couple's joint positioning has closed it. Conditions get attached. Statements get made publicly that harden attitudes on both sides. Projects get announced, Netflix series, podcast ventures, brand partnerships that seem to actively complicate any rapprochement. Palace insiders, speaking carefully and without attribution, have used words like derailed and undermined to describe what happens to Harry's quieter instincts when the couple acts as a unit. This is not a new dynamic, of course. Royal correspondents have noted for years that Harry and Meghan present a unified front publicly that sometimes masks genuine tension in the strategies they're pursuing. Harry's natural instinct, shaped by decades inside the institution, is toward privacy, toward quiet negotiation, toward the kind of slow diplomatic mending that the royal family has always preferred. Meghan's instincts, shaped by a career in entertainment and a shrewd understanding of American media culture, tend in a very different direction. She understands brand, she understands narrative control. She understands that in the world she now operates in, visibility and boldness are assets. Those two sets of instincts are not always compatible, and that incompatibility, according to reports, came into sharp focus over Harry's most recent efforts to find some kind of footing with the family. Sources suggest that Harry had been making what one account described as quiet overtures, the kind of behind-the-scenes groundwork that the royal family has always conducted away from public view. There was a sense, tentative but real, that some of the bitterness of recent years might be slowly softening. King Charles's health challenges had by multiple accounts prompted genuine reflection on Harry's part about time, about family, about what actually matters. But then, as has happened before, something shifted. Not a dramatic public rupture, but a series of moves, statements, positioning, media appearances that effectively telegraphed to the palace that the Sussexes remained, in institutional terms, adversarial. And the careful, fragile groundwork Harry had been laying simply could not survive that public context. You cannot conduct sensitive, private diplomacy while simultaneously sending signals through interviews and projects that suggest you have no intention of genuinely re-engaging. The palace noticed. And the frustration, sources suggest, was acute. What makes this particularly significant is the timing. The monarchy is in a period of considerable transition. King Charles is managing his health alongside the demands of the crown. Prince William and Catherine are increasingly the gravitational center of the working royal family. The institution is thinking carefully and seriously about what the monarchy looks like in 10, 15, 20 years. Harry's children carry royal blood. The question of how or whether they factor into that future is not an abstract one. And every time a potential path forward gets blocked, that question becomes harder to answer. People close to Harry have privately expressed that he genuinely does not want permanent estrangement, that he thinks about his children's relationship with their British heritage, that he feels the pull of what he left behind more acutely than his public statements sometimes suggest. But those same people acknowledge that Harry rarely, if ever, acts unilaterally where Meghan is concerned. The couple operate as a unit, and Meghan's calculation, reports suggest, is that re-engagement with the royal family offers very little upside from where she stands. Her life in California is, by any visible measure, the life she has chosen and built deliberately. She has her charity work, her lifestyle brand, her public profile in American cultural life. The royal family, for Meghan, represents not an opportunity but largely a source of past pain, and strategically, a complicated relationship that requires careful management rather than genuine rapprochement. So when Harry's quieter instincts push in one direction, Meghan's strategic positioning tends to pull in another. And Harry, sources suggest, does not override her. The result is a situation that palace insiders find genuinely and increasingly frustrating. Not because they are desperate to have Harry back in an official capacity, that ship has, by most accounts, sailed, but because the ongoing ambiguity creates its own complications. It's harder to settle questions of security of titles of the children's futures when the Sussexes' actual position keeps shifting depending on which project they're promoting or which grievance has most recently surfaced. A clean break would be easier to manage than this perpetual state of partial, complicated disconnection. What this moment reveals, I think, is something important about the nature of the Sussex situation that often gets lost in the day-to-day drama. Harry and Meghan are not two people who want the same things and are being prevented from having them by an inflexible institution. They are two people who, at some fundamental level, want different things from this situation, and who have chosen to want those things together as a unit, which means that the tensions between those different desires play out not between them and the palace, but within their own partnership. And it is Harry who, by most accounts, bears the greater cost of that arrangement. The palace, for its part, has learned to wait. The institution has existed for 1,000 years. It is not in a hurry. But patience has its limits, and sources suggest that the window for any meaningful reconnection, the kind that would allow Harry's children a genuine place in the story of the British monarchy, is not indefinitely open. Time moves. The royal family moves forward, and every frustrated plan, every derailed overture, every moment where Meghan's influence closes a door that Harry's instincts might have kept ajar, makes that window a little narrower. So here is the question that I keep coming back to, and I suspect many of you are thinking the same thing. At what point does Harry stop being frustrated by the gap between what he says he wants and what his life actually reflects? And what would it truly take, for the dynamic between him and Meghan to shift enough that a different outcome becomes possible? Let me know what you think in the comments. Because this story is far from over, and understanding it, I think, tells us more about where the monarchy is heading than almost anything else happening right now.